All right, I think we are good to go. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and everything is up and running as it should be. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. So we've got a couple of changes. I'll go over those in just a minute. But before we jump into the stream specifics, I do just want to take a second and call out a thanks to all the supporters of the channel, beginning with our partners. They are the highest tier of subscription over on Patreon and YouTube memberships, and they are Aarcia and Gerboles Inc. I'd also like to thank everybody else listed here on the screen. They're the other tiers of support over on Patreon, YouTube memberships, and of course, Twitch subscriptions. Thank you guys very much. Your support is greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you viewers who either is viewing here or over on YouTube. Obviously, without you guys, this project wouldn't exist in the first place, so I appreciate each and every one of you being here, and thank you very much for that. So, on the roster tonight is we are going to work a little bit towards kind of refactoring our little debug window that we have in our testbed application. Because we kind of hacked that together just to kind of get something quick and dirty running, but I think it's time we kind of standardized that and created a control out of it on its own. And to do that, we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need a way to basically have like a text box, so something to enter controls. And we're going to need a button with some text on it, right? And then eventually we'll probably also need a button where we can sort of apply an image to it, right? So we're not obviously going to get through all of that tonight, but I would like to at least make some progress on that. So that is the goal for tonight. Before we actually jump into that, though, I do want to take a quick second. And in the last stream, we actually had a little bit of work left to do around some of the refactoring work that needed to be done for the label conversion from the UI text, right? So I figure really quickly we could probably step through that. Let me just go ahead and grab that change. Should be this one here. Okay. Coffee, welcome to the stream. How's it going, man? What are you working on today? So, most of this version stuff I can kind of skip over. So one thing that we went ahead and added was the concept of an Atlas override, right? We didn't really have that. And so our renderable now has the concept of an Atlas override. And if we have that, we go ahead and use it. Otherwise, we fall back to the UI Atlas, right? So we just, whenever we set up the diffuse map in our shader system, we basically just choose whichever one is relevant here and bind that one, right? On the UI pass, we removed all the references to UI text, right? And those things actually become these standard UI render data. So we no longer have to treat these texts separately. So that's good. Those things are gone. In our base destroy, we actually fixed a bug. This was basically doing a negative test when it should have been a positive test to destroy this stuff. So we just fixed that. Let's see. Just cleaning stuff up. What about you? That is mostly what I've been doing here. Mostly just cleaning stuff up and getting ready for this stream, actually. So I guess while I'm kind of talking about that, you might notice that like my buttons up here are a little bit different. That is because I'm actually running on Windows tonight. I know, tisk tisk. But I basically had problems with my graphics driver crashing on Linux. Something about the NVIDIA graphics driver lately is just not all that stable. And I don't know what it is, and I'm tired of having the stream die. So for now, I'm switching over to Windows. for a little bit just to see if that solves the problem, because it kind of sucks having to splice my streams together and have it go down for a time. So we're going to try this and see how it works. No, actually an improvement. I don't know. PowerShell is not an improvement over a bash terminal, I'll tell you that much. So one other thing that we did was we removed all of the logic around having render buffers per UI text. So those no longer are there. And we used to have this check here that said, well, if the length is less than 1, then we're going to set the length to 1, so that we had at least something to fill in a buffer. And that was kind of stupid, right? And so instead of doing that, we're basically not going to allocate any space in our vertex or index buffers unless we actually have something to draw, right? So what we're doing now is we're setting the vertex and index buffer offsets to invalid ID U64, and we check for that elsewhere, right? And basically when we're using the buffers, these will be anything but that value. And when we're not using them, they'll be invalid ID, right? We also had a small bug where we were still looking at the old built-in UI shader, which I think there might be 1 or 2 things left using this, and then we can finally get rid of that. So I switched that over to using the standard UI shader. And then here is that check that I added for the vertex offset, buffer offset, being assigned to invalid ID U64. So if it's not that, then we can go ahead and free it in this case, right? So this is within the unload method, right? And then here we also have the version of that for the index buffer. We also assign the Atlas override. So this is the first thing to use the Atlas override. So this just uses the font data's Atlas in this case. So that's what gets assigned to the diffuse texture when we go ahead and render this. We added a method to be able to get a constant version of the character array of the text within this control. So we have that. Here we updated the load range. Instead of loading from 0, now we load from vertex buffer and index buffer offsets. In the UI system, we have on the renderable now, we have a texture map pointer, which is an Atlas override. So if there is an Atlas override here, we assign it. Otherwise, it's null, and we move on. Here's the exposed version of that get text. And then our debug console, we had to sort of do a little bit of hacking in here. This debug console was a hack to begin with, so we had to do a little bit of hacking to bring it up to our standard. And then we're actually going to be moving this thing probably tonight and do away with some of the hacks, right? And just sort of start treating it like an actual control. So for right now, we basically replaced anything that was looking at the entry control.text, and we just pull the text once up here using that. And then anything that was UI text underscore anything is basically replaced with its equivalent for the SUI label, right? The SUI label, of course, was mostly a drop-in replacement for the old version of that control. So that's that. This is just more of that stuff, just swapping out those methods. Here's us actually loading that up. Again, the blocks of code that look like this are temporary. These are here simply because we don't actually have a overarching sort of scene for our UI objects to manage the lifecycle of them. So we kind of have to handle them this way for right now. Before we get too much more complicated with this, we probably are going to have to start thinking about how we want to have some sort of a management structure for that, right? And it'll probably wind up being something like UI scene. More of the same changes here, right? Again, loading up a text or a label control. We did away with all the UI text stuff here, replaced these guys. It's really the same set of changes all the way down, right? Like it's really just This is why I didn't want to do most of it on stream last time, is because it's really just sort of grunt work, right? The only other change that we had to do was in Simple Scene. Since we had actually changed everything to no longer use the geometry in the render data, we actually had to update our Simple Scene to work the same way as all of our other UI stuff that we refactored, right? So because we got rid of this data.geometry pointer, and we don't use that anymore, we basically use the material if it exists, and then we copy over the offsets and counts and things like that. And that way, all we have to do is just hand over a couple of numbers to the renderer and say, hey, do this thing. And we're not, passing around all this data all over the place. So that is basically all that's in this file. Testbed main had a couple of test text boxes as well, so we just went ahead and updated those. Same thing up here. We just changed from UI text to SUI label functions. More data updates, right, to just fit that new render data structure. So that's what all these are. That's what most of this stuff is, right? Here we were able to completely eliminate this code for our console text. It looks like actually most of this wound up getting commented out. So I think I've got some dead code in here. We could probably come back in here and clobber some of that later. Got rid of some destruction methods. Again, we don't need those. And then last but not least, the render view pick, which we're not actually using at the moment. We need to convert this eventually to a to one of our render graph passes rather. We need to convert that, but this just needed the render data update as well. So we've gone ahead and done that and clobbered most of the code in here just because we're not using it, right? So with all of that in place, our branch looks, mostly the same. But when we run, let me go ahead and bring this down here. The editor that shall not be named. And when we go ahead and run this now, we can see now that we have a lot of stuff on the screen. So these are actually UI labels now. They're not that the old UI text. They are now using our new UI system to be rendered. And we can see here that we're actually rendering the console behind here. So if I press like M to get a memory report, you can see that kind of just changes, right? And so that's because that's always active right now. We're not turning it on or off. And so some of our work with the debug console will be doing that. Okay. TPT Sam, hello. Welcome to the stream. How are you? Hope everything's going well. We're just kind of getting caught up to with some of the logic updates that I did off camera. So the next thing that we really want to do is we need to add, we have a couple things we need to do. We need to add some text to these buttons, right? I could probably kill this animation at this point. We need to add some text to these buttons just to make it so that we can actually assign text to it. We probably ought to add images to it at some point, but I think we can get away without doing that just yet. Because the thing I really want to work on tonight is actually a text box. And that's just a, your typical like box where you can click it and enter text into it, that kind of thing. And so there will be a few requirements that we have to figure out with that as well, like focusable controls. But it shouldn't be too bad. So that is what's on the roster for tonight. Hope all that makes sense. This is an interactive stream, by the way, so if you guys have questions or comments or things you want to discuss along the way, feel free to bring it up, and I do monitor the chat. So, if you guys want to talk about anything, let me know. Okay, so where we left off was down here with our label geometry stuff. I'm thinking probably the thing we need to do first is we probably need to move some stuff around a little bit. Namely, like some of our panels. Let's see. So our panel that we set up is kind of at a weird location right now. And so we probably ought to go ahead and fix that. Let's see. So this is... Wait. Oh, that's kind of interesting. We've got a copy pasta in here. That's an issue. So this is calling SUI panel control load instead of SUI label control load. That is interesting. I guess because we're setting the text later, we're getting away with it. So do that. Got some copy pastas to get rid of in here, right? System text and system text. Oops. Text, not test. Okay. Here is the panel I was actually looking for. So, do we actually have a way to set position on this guy? No, we do not. So that's kind of an annoying issue. I mean, I suppose we can just set its transform, right? So yeah, I guess that's probably going to be the way to go, actually. Okay. So let's try moving that test panel. We can do that after we load. We'll say transform translate. We want the address of state test panel xform. And we're going to just do an inline vector 3. So we'll say, let's put this over at, I don't know, like 300 pixels. Yeah, 300. 300 pixels from the left, 200 pixels from the top, I guess, for right now. And then, of course, 0 there for the position. Why did it just nuke my entire line? That's rude of it. Okay. Suppose I probably should have done a clean and rebuild on this just to be sure. Hellcat22, first time chat. So first off, welcome to the stream. You have one question, why do we exist? Do you mean like as humans, why do we exist? I wish I knew the answer to that, actually. Apparently I exist to write game engines. But yeah, what greater purpose that serves? I don't know. I guess one person could say, like, we exist to pollute our planet, right? I don't know. That's a good question. Okay. So we should see. Yeah, okay. Well, now that's blocking this other thing. Okay. We should probably make this panel resizable, because that's kind of an annoying thing that we should really probably handle. Feels bad, man. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer. I guess I'm not really good with philosophical stuff like that, but I suppose if I were to think about it, we really exist to pass on knowledge to future generations, right? Whether or not they want to listen to that is another thing, you know. I think modern generations tend to look on past generations as
what in the hell?
And I think past generations look on modern generations as
what in the hell?
So, you know, what are you going to do? It feels bad. What is life? Yeah. Herd. If you think about it too hard, though, you might, like, kill brain cells or something. So, you know, can't be having that much thinking. I guess let's bump this over a little bit more because it's kind of in the way. I really should be able to resize it, though, because that's really kind of annoying. Hamster dev. Baby, don't hurt me. Love it. This is getting deep tonight. Okay, so I guess let's change this to 100 from the top so we can still see the bottom text, and change this to, like, I don't know, 500. I hate how long linking takes on Windows. I don't know why it's so slow. I have a suspicion, but it's kind of annoying how much longer it takes it to build on Windows than Linux or Mac. Okay, so that's a little bit easier to deal with. I think we're probably going to get rid of these test objects anyways at some point, but okay. So let me think. What all we need? If we think about a like a drop-down console, right? In fact, let me actually. Let me search for an example of this that I'm thinking of. Because, of course, I'm thinking of open image, a new tab. There we go. Man, it's so low resolution, though, but I think you guys will be able to kind of get the point. So we're going to keep our console, like, pretty self-contained like this one, right? This is the Quake console. And so basically we need, like, a background texture of some sort, which I suppose we could non-slice that up too, right? We need something to be able to enter some text in somewhere. And then we need a method of scrolling eventually with the mouse. Because right now we can just kind of scroll with, I think it was page up and page down or something. I don't remember the exact. I forget what it was. I forget what I mapped that to at this point, but like we have our ability to type, right? So if I can type exit, right? And we can exit out. But it's a little bit hard to tell that that's actually there. So we need something to sort of visually identify that that's a text box. So I guess we can just kind of use that panel for now, maybe make it resizable. And go from there. So let me see. I'm in the wrong file. So we have our panel control creates. Right now, all that takes is a name. So we probably ought to take like some of these parameters, like what size do we want to create it, right? We should probably always zero base it because it's going to be transformed by our transformation. So I don't think we really need to take that into account. We might need to take into account whether or not we want to center it, but that could just be another flag we add later. So let's take in a vector2 size. And here we'll use size.x and size.y. I think that's actually all we need to really do. So we do have these hard-coded coordinates in here right now, which we probably also ought to do away with. Generate quad 2D. Actually, are we actually even using... We're hard-coding the size, aren't we? Width and height are hard-coded. We don't want to do that. So, since we're using rect here, I suppose we could use self. Is that internal data? It is. Okay, so we need type data rect, and then we'll use width, and then typed data rect height. All right, and then if we go to our H file, we can just add in vec2 size here. And here we need to add our size. So let's set this to something a little bit cattywampus, I guess, right? So let's set it to like 100 by 200. Right, so we'll make it taller than it is wide. I guess we can use floats for this, right? Eventually, we are going to have configuration that we're going to be able to use and read in for this, and potentially even be hot reloadable. But one step at a time. Okay, so we do have that working, so that's good. And so what I'm thinking is we basically just use one of these panels as backdrop to our console, and then we can essentially just parent everything to, or I should say, make everything a child of that panel, including this text and the entry text. And then we can just show and hide that particular panel or deactivate it or whatever when we hide the debug console, and that should get us like most of the way for what we're looking for. All right. So we do have ads starting soon, so I'm going to hold off in a minute on that. But if you guys do have any questions or things you want to bring up, maybe besides why do it exist, because I don't know, but things I'd be able to answer, feel free to dump those in the chat. So yeah, this, by the way, how is the volume? Can you guys hear me okay? So I think I have everything tuned as I had it on my Linux setup, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, we got ads. So for those of you who can still hear me, we like to pause the stream whenever ads come up because some of you get ads, some of you don't, but I don't want anybody that is being served ads to miss the roughly 1.5 minute to 2 minute section of the stream. So I'd like to just kind of take a pause, stretch for a second, that kind of thing, while the ads are running, and we'll be back here in about 1 minute and 5 seconds. So we got about 20 seconds. All right, and we're back. So, Mighty Loopy, you asked, why do we have a Boolean for returning instantiating UI elements? When would that fail out of memory? So out of memory, I suppose could happen. It's not something I'm terribly worried about. It's usually unexpected parameters, right? So that's our chance to sort of validate what's passed to us to say, hey, is this kind of valid for the limits of what we should expect in the control, right? And so, for example, if we're looking at the panel control create here, the only thing that can fail out of that is this SUI base control. And so if we peak definition on that, basically it just says if we don't have a pointer to store the control in, then obviously we would return false, right? So if somebody passes a null there, then obviously there's nothing we can do there, right? And so that would be an example of where we return false. And then, yeah, I think that's probably about it for right now. But there will be other instances of controls that may have other parameters that need to be checked. And so by providing this ability to check that at the creation level, all controls are sort of consistent in the way that they're created, and it gives the author the ability to not create those things. So eventually we're going to have a system where you can register custom controls, and those custom controls would need to return a Boolean as well in order to let the system know whether or not each of those steps happened correctly. So that would be why. Juan, thank you for the stretch redeem and the follow. Appreciate that. Hellcat, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that as well. Definitely need to stretch. I've got this weird, I pulled a muscle in my neck or something, so the stretch definitely helps. Okay. So I hope that makes sense as far as why we would have a Boolean return here, right? And each one of these steps actually has one. The only thing I think that we don't bother checking is actually the destroy, because usually if you're unloading something and that fails, I mean, what are you really going to do, right? You might log about it, but like there's not really anything you can do about that. The editor is NeoVim. Yeah. First time chat. Well, welcome to the stream, by the way. Yeah, this is NeoVim. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to head over to the Debug Console. And actually, that's still in testbed lib, which actually should not be. So Debug Console, we're actually going to have be part of the standard UI system. Because it's not really something that you would use outside of that. There's no reason for a game necessarily to have to make their own, although you could. But I think this is something we should probably definitely be using for that instead. So I think we probably should go ahead and move this first. I think that makes sense. So let's go ahead and go into testbed lib, and I'm going to grab the debug console and place that in standard UI. In this case, I think I'm going to go ahead and paste it right in the root folder there, and then same for this guy. All right. So I'm actually going to close that one and open this one. And I'm actually wondering, that's going to break some stuff, so let's actually fix that first. Oh, right. You know what? We probably need to clean. Clean and rebuild. There we go. Okay, unresolved external symbol. Okay, I know where that is. So that is going to be because we are not exporting any of this stuff. So all of these things need to be exported. Right? Because if we call them in application code, which we're going to, we need the ability to actually reference those things. So I think that's I should fix that. Okay. So let's try and run this real quick and just make sure that we didn't horribly break anything. That debug console should have moved. It looks like it did. Okay, cool. Okay, that looks like it worked. All right, so our debug console is kind of a little bit of a hybrid, right? It's kind of a control, but kind of also a state. And so it's not really something that necessarily should be defined as a control. It should really, it's something that just kind of contains controls and is kind of its own thing. And so I'm not going to treat this as a control. This is just going to kind of be like a separate sort of semi-control manager type of thing. What we do want is we'll call this BG panel, right? So that's going to be background panel to clear the highlights. And actually, that'll probably be enough for right now. And then if we do the C file, I think this is where we actually stand up all of our controls, if I remember correctly. This is where we handle key inputs, which we probably need to come up with a much more robust way of handling that. In fact, the text box that we create is actually going to handle that. Okay, so here's the load. Okay, so here's where we actually create our controls. So over here, we will take, I think this is just the panel here. So we have our panel. Transform, do we not have... math, transform. Okay, system type, standard UI extension. Nope, that's not what we want. Where is that defined though? Okay, system type, standard UI extension. Standard. I know we defined that somewhere. There it is. We just find that in our testbed main. Really? Why did I put it there? Oh. Because the application is registering it, that's why. I guess that makes sense, but it really belongs in a header file. Do we have somewhere that we could put this that's a little bit more... I'm going to move this to the... I'm going to move this to... I guess testbed types actually kind of makes sense. Really, we don't have U16 here? That's kind of lame. Okay. So, wow, it's still, code actions are very good. All right. So I guess we could just include. Oh, wait a minute. That's not going to work. Because this doesn't sit in testbed anymore. But this knows about standard UI. That's actually where it belongs. I guess we could put it up here at the top, right? Let's do right there. So we have the standard UI system there, so that should be fine then. Okay. All right, so instead of state test panel, this is going to be background panel. And again, we're going to have something that manages these separately eventually, so I'm not going to have to do all these steps eventually. Background panel, background panel, background panel, background panel, background panel. I missed one more. Okay. So this is our rendering. Let's go ahead and change this. Okay, system type standard UI extension. We don't actually have like bounds on how big this thing is. Probably should figure that out at some point too. Okay. So our panel, we want our panel to be actually we want it to be at 0, 0. But we want our size to be 720 for now by, let's say, 300. I'm just spitballing here. Tammin, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. Good evening. How are you doing? Good to see you. I am doing pretty well. I'm just, I had to switch to Windows tonight, and there's just kind of things I'm still figuring out in the middle of the stream. Because I got tired of my graphics driver crashing on Windows. NVIDIA did something with the last couple of releases with it where it's just not stable for me. You managed to break your graph implementation? Nice. I break things every day. The question is, can you fix it? That's the real question. I'm going to comment that out for now because we want it 0, 0. Okay, so we're going to say is active is equal to false for now. Okay, and then when we create our control for rendering, instead of parenting this to nothing, we are going to parent this to state background panel. Right. Let's see. I think everything else here is good. The only other thing that I need to set is the parent for this guy, which is the entry box, right? So that needs to also be the address of state background panel. You hope so. Yeah, I'm sure you'll fix it. Have faith. You will fix it. Okay, SUI label position set. Okay, so we did actually do some calculation here. I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna label this as a hack, actually. This is definitely not the best way to figure out the height of the above text control. But it does work, and I am going to steal it. So when I'm calculating the height of this guy, we want line display counts, and I'm going to say +1. And for reference, the reason that we're going with 31 is because that is the font size of these controls. So actually, instead of magic numbers, let's actually make that a little bit more explicit, right? So what do these want? I think they're U16s, yeah. So U16 font size equals 31. Right, and then I can do this. Font size. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay. And then down here, we can say font size and font size. Make it a little bit more flexible, right? We still have the hard-coded font in here, and that's kind of crap too, but we'll work around it. This should also be font size. Okay. So all of that makes sense. Now when we open the control, which I don't recall off the top of my head, what was the state visible equals visible? I think that's how we literally open it up. Open it and close it, if I remember correctly. So all we should have to do is basically this, but with the background control. So we might be able to get rid of the state visible. Maybe. But for right now, we'll say background panel is active. It's just going to be set to visible. We don't have the SUI state, so we need to get that. All right, so we set the panel to active as we set it, and then update it in the system. That's entry control. This should be BG panel. And so theoretically, it should activate and deactivate all of those controls at once. So let's test that theory. What did I miss? Unused variable height. Debug console line 200. Oh. Derp. Already defined in debug console. a system type standard UI ext. Should only be defined in one spot. Oh. Testbed main has it. Oh, that's what the problem is. Okay. So, wait, why did it? Did I not write the file? I didn't. New mistake. It's still saying it's... Let me clear real quick. Do a clean rebuild. Why is engine taking so long to clear? Have I experimented with C++ modules? I have not, no. I'm still using C, so yeah. I have not messed with it. I've read up on it a little bit, but I've not actually tried to use it. It seems like it might be something that's useful, but it also seems like it's something that could quite quickly make a mess, honestly. Okay. Terminal. Okay. It's like not. So this is why I don't like working on Windows, because it does weird file locking crap that causes problems like this all the time. So annoying. I'm going to make a branch in my engine to test it out and see how it goes. Yeah, let me know. It's one of those things I've kind of wanted to play around with, but only so I understand it. So that if I have to work on a code base that uses it, I know how it works. All right, well, this is kind of cool. It looks like my clean script hung for some reason. What are the... I don't see why it would have hung. Let me see if I just tried to run htop on Windows, right? That's not going to work. Okay, let me find the guy here that is hung up. Because apparently... Oh, it finally exited. Okay. All right. So we'll build. Multiply defined symbols. So it still exists somewhere. Okay, system type. Where else is it defined? Once there in UI system. Oh, I bet I know what it is. I bet I don't have a... Oh, I do have a pragma once. All right. I'm just going to turn this into a macro. Oh. I put an equal sign in there, that's why. Boy, I must have really had a longer day today than I realized. Making all kinds of simple, stupid mistakes tonight. Happens to us all, I guess. Okay. Now we can actually run this and see what it looks like. There we go. So, it looks like it's on by default though, which is kind of strange. So it should not be drawing if it's inactive. So I'm guessing that whatever we have in place to activate this and inactivate it is just not hooked up correctly. So, what would that be, I wonder? Because this is kind of drawing in the right order now. Are we not actually paying attention to that, I wonder? So when we loop through this, oh, right. So active actually isn't the thing that we want to be modifying. We actually need didn't we have a is active is visible. Is visible is actually what we want to do. So what we really should be doing here is also saying if not C is visible. Continue. Here we go. So technically state background panel is visible equals visible. We probably could still set this active stuff anyway, so it doesn't update while it's off. Maybe. I am going to turn that off for right now, though. That too. BP panel. So we probably ought to also do... I'm going to leave this true for now, actually, so it gets text updates. State BG panel is visible equals false. I just want to see this work, right? And then we'll try and optimize for active versus inactive in a bit. All right, so all right, well, that's kind of a good sign, I think. I'm a little surprised it nuked all of our text. That's not what I was expecting. Actually, it looks like it nuked everything because we didn't set as visible on anything else. So I'll bet when we actually show this, it's only going to give us our panel. Yep. Okay. So that's kind of annoying to have to actually go through and set that. I wonder if we should just default everything to is visible. I'm not going to do it yet. But that might wind up becoming a default. So that's this one also needs it. Maybe I should just do that. You know what? I am going to make it active or visible by default. Right? Because more often than not, that's what you're going to want. So let me actually go to standard UI system. And we go to the base control create. Out control is visible is true. Set all controls to visible by default. All right. There we go. This is kind of what I expected to see before. So our test controls are here. Our text is here. If I open this up, now we get our actual log here. And I should be able to type like exit, right? And that all looks like it's working correctly. And then if I hit tilde again, it goes away. And I can also hit escape to make that go away. The only thing is it doesn't look like my backspace is working. So I'll have to fix that. It doesn't look like the backspace is working. And also I'm going to change the panel's image to be something a little bit less obnoxious because we know that that's actually working right. So I'm going to actually edit that image real quick. Let's see. So let me go ahead and get that asset loaded. Let's see, it was under textures. We're going to have ads here in just a second. Standard UI Atlas. I'm just going to edit the PNG for now. Next command to implement mother load. I might put that in as like an Easter egg. Okay, so this is actually like way too big as well for this, so I probably ought to downsize this at some point, but for now I'll leave it. Let's go with ads. So we got about a minute left on ads. I'd just like to pause the stream so you guys don't miss anything. About 30 seconds left. And we'll be right back. Just want to wait for the ads to finish up. All right, cool. We are back. So all I'm going to do for this panel section is just kind of have this 75% grade on this, just so that we can kind of see through it a little bit and whatnot, but it'll be dark enough that we should be able to see our text. So let's crank this up and see what that guy looks like. That's pretty dark, actually. We'll go ahead and load a scene so that we can see a scene behind it, and we'll pull up the console. It's already looking better, right? We can already read this. We need to extend this. Obviously, on Resize, we need to figure out how wide the screen is and extend that appropriately. But that's already starting to look a lot better just with that sort of transparent background there. So that's cool. So I guess, let's see. Let's go back to our split view here, and we'll do Debug Console. And let's see. We do have a resize in here. I thought we did anyway. Maybe we don't, actually. I thought we did, but apparently we don't. So we need to listen for that and figure out what the resolution of the screen is, and then get the width on that. So I guess probably the way to do that is going to be follow the same pattern as what we did for our registration of events here. So we'll say event, register, event, event code resize. Our listener is going to be the out console state, and we're going to have debug console on resize as our event handler. We don't have that defined yet, but we'll get to it here in a second. So we have that event register. And then we have, let's see, here's unlib load. So we'll paste that there. So we'll use state. And then on unload, we'll have that here, and that'll be unregister. Okay. Right, so that should be good. And then I believe we can just kind of go to this guy. And let's see, do we want to put that? Kind of want to put it next to the other ones. I'm guessing we put those to the top. Yeah. So let's put that here. All right, and this is going to be on resize. And I think we should have put in the comments. So it's U16, 0, and 1 are the width and height. Right, so context data U16, 0. So that's going to be U16 width. There's that. And height is going to be that. We want to return false, meaning we want to allow other handlers to handle that event. And then we'll basically have to resize the we need to go ahead and get, let's see, this. Okay, we're not. Debug console state equals listener instance. Right. Within this, we should say state background panel, and I don't think that we actually have a way to resize this. I don't think we have a way. Which is kind of an issue. So we set the rectangle. When we load, I just have to refresh my memory here. So we generate a quad 2D, acquire a geometry. So I guess we could release the old geometry and acquire a new. That seems kind of poop. But that might be the way that we have to do it. Not a huge fan of that, though. Okay. Well, regardless, we need this stuff. Let's see. Control updates. I guess the best way to do it is going to be to add another function here. SUI panel control resize, struct sui control self, and then we'll say vec2 new size. And in this, obviously we'll say here, if not self, return false. Otherwise we'll return true. Type data, we could just copy from here. Xmax. Oh, we're gonna have to regenerate all that stuff too, aren't we? I wonder if we can just actually... I'm gonna try setting the vertex data and updating that first. So G type data G vertices. When we generate 2D quad, how do we do this? Generate 2D quad. You know what? I'm just going to actually... I'm literally just going to copy this and only take what I need. So that's probably going to be much faster. Right, so let's do this. We don't need to set any of those. We need height and width there. We don't need these. We don't need to set that. We don't need to set that. We don't need to set these. And then this becomes typed data G vertices. So the only things we should have to set is that to new size dot y new size dot x, and then we just need to typed data. What is this bleating about? Oh, right, because vertices is void, isn't it? Yes, it's a void pointer. So, vertex 2D vertices equals type data G vertices. Right? And then delete 4 words, delete 4 words, delete 4 words. Okay. I'm thinking that should probably give us what we need. And then instead of doing this or this, we should be able to do geometry vertex update. Type data geometry offset. is going to be 0. Vertex count is going to be type data G vertex count. And vertices. I think this returns a Boolean, so we should probably check that, right? Or does it? No, it's return type void. Okay. So in theory, if we call that resize at that point, we should be able to get done what we need to get done. Oh, we didn't set the rect. We should probably do that too. Typed data dot rect dot width equals new size x. Type data rect height is equal to new size dot y. Excuse me. Okay. So here I should be able to say SUI panel control resize. Pass the address of this. Let's call it a vector2 of width and height. Those should convert automatically. And that's all we should have to do. We have to declare this in our header file. So in the panel control, put this here. Export that. Okay, we've hooked up the resize event. We might need to do some checking on this to make sure that that's actually done at the right time, but because if that resize event kicks off too early, that might be a problem. But I'm thinking we might have already handled that by waiting to sign up for the events until everything's loaded. I think. We'll know based on whether we crash right away. Okay, so we didn't crash. It didn't resize either, though. So let me try resizing this. Oh. I resized the width and the height, so now it covers the whole screen. Which I guess isn't terrible either, but it's not what I wanted. Okay, but I know the resize logic works at least. Okay, so I don't actually want to do this way. Do I have a way? Do I have a way to get the size? I don't believe I do, because that's all internal data. Okay, so maybe instead of resize... No, I think resize is fine. But we do KAPI vec2 SUI panel size. Self. Okay. So maybe here. We say if not self, return vec2 0. Right, otherwise else we could just actually return vec2. I need the typed data. Typed data rect width. Typed data rect, whoops, rect height. All right. And then here, technically, I could just ignore the height and instead vec2 size equals SUI panel size. Address of state BG panel. And then here I'll just say size.height. Size.y. So it should hold on to that same panel height. Okay. So even if we blow it up full screen now, it looks like it holds on to it right. There is some sort of weird thing going on here with the text, though. It looks like we've got a couple lines overriding each other, maybe. Was that my debug text, maybe? Can't tell what that is. I think that's my other text that used to be like up here somewhere. I'm not sure. All right. Oh, did that maybe get parented to... Let me see something. So... I guess we can look at... I want to take a look at the tree real quick and see what it is that we are looking at. So the type states root, children. So the first child is the test panel. And then its children. First one is the debug console log text. I'm actually going to have to break this down into, okay. I'm going to have to watch this over here. And this is going to be we'll say this is an array of, I don't know, 10. It's way too many, but what did I do? It does have children, doesn't it? It's right there, you bananas. All right, let me skip over this actually and just say root here. maybe that's part of the problem. Oh, wrong syntax. I've got to use the Visual Studio way of doing this. Okay, so the first one is the test panel. The second child is the mono test text. The third one is the UTF. So it is at the right level. It's visible, so why can't we actually see it? That's not getting updated for some reason. So let's see, what is, so under our test panel, let's look at the children of that. So we have our debug console log text and our debug console entry text. Okay, both those things make sense. And then the next one should just be rubbish. Yeah. Okay, so everything is in the correct hierarchy. So that's not an issue. But for some reason, I can't tell what that text is back there. It's not our entry text, right? Because if I type exit there, like it shows up. I've got to figure out the backspace issue. Oh, interesting. Ooh, that's an interesting bug. So when the string becomes shorter, it's not actually re-uploading the string data. So we've messed something up there. And that could be the problem with the other string not showing up too. Okay, so that's going to be, it's likely going to be here. So we set text. So we do grab a new string object. And then we regenerate geometry. So needs realloc is only done if we're growing the string. That might not actually be what we need to do. So when we go to draw this, we're drawing the max text length. That's why. That's the problem. We shouldn't be doing that, because like we can have garbage data in the buffer, and that should be fine. Like if we shorten the string, we should just not be rendering the sort of garbage things that are left over in that string from before, that come in that buffer afterwards. So instead of max text length, we should be taking the UTF text length here. Man, I really don't want to do that every single time we render, though. So let's not do that. Let's do U32 cached UTF-8 length. And we'll use that here. Right? And we'll use that here and here. But then what we'll do is when we go to regenerate geometry, we actually get that here, right? So at this point, type data.cached UTF-8 length should be text length UTF-8. And I think by updating it there, I should fix that bug. Let's see. All right. Okay, let's resize the window. Resize again. Okay, that seems to have cleared up whatever issue is here. So I have a feeling that it probably is actually what the problem was. So if I type exit and a backspace, now we do the thing. Right? Sweet. So that's actually working as it should be now. Cool. So I still don't know where our other text object went. That should be here. I don't know whatever happened to that. This one's getting updated all the time. I think we did say it was visible, right? So that's the test panel. Testbed mono test text. UTF-8 system text. Oh, you know what? We have two things in here called test panel. Which of these is the right test panel? Should probably rename that so we know. Okay, so this one here, Debug Console background panel. And then in testbed main, you have test panel, which is parented to nothing. The button, which is parented to the test panel. Okay, that makes sense. And then where the heck are the test texts? Label control, create. So here's one that's not parented to anything. Okay, so that makes sense. And then this is not parented to anything either. So that does also make sense. The problem seems to be oh, wait a minute. So this is the mono one. This is the one with the Japanese one. This is the one that's missing. So we do actually have some text that we're passing here. Test system text. We're using the wrong name here anywhere? No, I don't see it. We're setting it to active. SUI label position set. Test system text. Yeah, 550, 550, 0. I mean, that doesn't seem outrageous. I mean, I guess we could do something a little bit like 350. Get rid of that breakpoint. Yeah, that's really bizarre. For some reason, that one text object just isn't showing up, and I don't understand why. This seems to resize correctly, though, which is good. Yeah, that might be a render doc issue for sure. That's what I'm beginning to think, because it makes no sense that that one isn't loading. The only other thing that I want to check, first off, is maybe for some reason maybe the text isn't there yet. So let's see, that's the mono one. Internal data. Just need to grab the type information for that real quick. So SUI label internal data. I just want to have a look at the actual, the actual data to see what is. Okay, so I mean, VS Code doesn't know how to display it, but the logic is there. We have vertex and index buffer offsets, index data, font data. Yeah, so I don't see any reason data-wise why it wouldn't be showing up. Render doc it is. Good call, Taman. See, I haven't even run this on Windows in so long, I don't even know if it works anymore, actually. Let's see. Executable path. Give me 1 second just to browse to the correct folder on the hard drive. All right. that one. Okay. So let's launch. And we'll capture a frame here. And have a look. So, render pass UI. It could be, it's not going to be that one. It's probably going to be this one if I had to guess. Yeah, it's got to be this one. No? Yeah. Compare vertex count with VS Code. Yep. We have ads, though. We'll be back in 50 seconds, roughly. All right, looks like we are back. So just looking at this vertex data, all of our positions are 0. So I'm not sure exactly why that is, but that's definitely not right. So I don't think it's a vertex count issue. I think it's like the positions and texture coordinates are all just completely freaking wrong. So what I'm gonna have to do is basically step through this where we are setting that. Let's see, it's not that one, it's this guy here. And basically you're gonna have to debug through this as much as that sucks. Actually, the create I don't think actually does this, does it? Yes, it does. All right. So the text length UTF-8 is 42. That is consistent with what I saw in the data before. The regular character length is 54 in single bytes. That also makes sense because we have multi-byte characters there. So the max text length is less than that, so we're going to need a realloc. All right. Yeah, so that makes sense. So the max, right? Okay, so we don't want to free because there's nothing to free yet. This is the first load. Okay, so I don't think it's going to be an issue with our buffers. I think this logic is working correctly. Text length UTF-8 is greater than max text length. We still haven't updated that, so that's true. We'll go ahead and update that there. And then here is where we actually go through the code points and solve them all out. So we go ahead and get a font glyph. I'm actually just going to skip ahead on this one. Right, we should have gotten a font glyph. Yeah, okay, that looks valid to me. Okay, none of these are zeros. Some are kind of close, but not exactly zero. Okay, that's not a huge deal. We're just flipping the axis there for system fonts. None of these look wrong. So like at the very least, like this first set should be good to go. So the vertex buffer data is there. Okay, we set the X advance. All this, I think our index data is actually... No, our index data is all zeroed out too, isn't it? It is. Rude. Okay. Alright. So, I'm going to skip this entire loop because I think this loop is actually working correctly. And we have the vertex buffer offset, the vertex buffer size, the vertex buffer data, which again looks valid. So we load that. Free that up, which makes sense. Because we allocated that up here somewhere, I think. Right there. So that all worked correctly. So we do load. Oh, wait a minute. There's the issue right there. So basically what we're doing is we're loading all that buffer into a data and then immediately clobbering it when we call load, which is awesome. And the reason we're getting away with it on the other controls is because we call set text at a later time on all of those other controls except this one. So now I know what's happening. So the fix for this let's see, system C. And this is why I had this here, because I was expecting some sort of weird binaries like this, right? This actually doesn't belong here. This belongs I guess it would be here. Self. Let me try that again without the program actually running. I think we figured it out. Yep, let me get rid of my breakpoints. Just going to disable this one. And this one. Okay. And what do you know? We have it back. That was the issue. Okay, so that was kind of annoying, but at least we figured it out, right? So it looks like all of our ones that update as they should. And now the one that it's just loaded up with static text that never changes also works. So that's pretty sweet. I do wonder why. I suppose I could call resize on this once, but like manually. It's very odd that there's no resize called in this initially. So what is actually the resolution here? Because we create this at 720p. Oh. The actual issue here is probably I typed the wrong dang thing. I'm guessing. So the width I put in as 720 and it should be 1280. Derp. All right, so we'll run this again. Now it's full-sized. And we can blow up the screen and it still stays full-sized. Sweet. Let me see. Let's actually hide this, load up a scene behind it. So we can just kind of see what that looks like overlaying that. Yeah, it looks pretty good, I think. I think that's dark enough. We should be able to easily read this text. And see all of our console output, right? So I think that's looking pretty good, actually. And actually, I was thinking about doing a text box tonight, but well, I suppose we could take a crack at that and see how it works, right? Because right now we've sort of emulated a text box by this, ability to type in here. But that's not quite what we want. So I think actually what I'm going to do before I do any of that is let's take a look here. I think we've made enough changes here. It warrants a commit. So let me just do that. Oh, I'm in the bin folder, that's why. All right, moved debug console, fix various label bugs, refactored or added panel resizing, I guess we'll say. Cool. So now that's up available there on the branch. All right. So I guess as far as a text box is concerned, all we're really going to be dealing with is something very similar to our button, where we're going to have like a 9 slice, and then we'll also have text within that. So I'm thinking the text box itself will probably just have a 9 slice, and then we'll sort of embed a label into it, and then we'll be able to sort of change the content of that label based on what we're doing with the text box. Is what makes the most sense to me. And we're probably going to revisit this text box a few times because there's a lot of things that text boxes do that we're probably not going to have right away. So let me see if I can find like an example in here of one. These are all drop downs. Okay, so like, can I type beyond 6 characters in this one? Okay, so like, if we look at this text box here, right, you can kind of type beyond the length of the actual physical text box and then sort of scroll back and forth. That we might do, but not initially. We're not going to have the ability to highlight right away either. It's basically going to be just a dumb box that will be able to move the cursor around and type, right? And that's going to be about it. And the reason for that is because we're going to do this in stages. We also have to figure out control focus, right? So when I say control focus, some controls can be focused, some others can't. And focus meaning like when you click on a text box, for example, it sort of changes into a mode where it sort of hijacks all the keyboard input and allows you to type into that text box. So right now this one's focused. If I click on this, that one's focused, right? And then if I click outside that or I change tabs, right, like tabs aren't focusable, right? So there's nothing I can't click on it and it sort of enters a sub mode where I can do something else, right? These slider controls aren't focusable. Unless maybe tab, like tabbing, you can tab. Looks like their tab control isn't perfect in this either. But generally speaking, like when you press tab, you should be able to change focus between various controls, right? So whichever one's highlighted is the one that we're certainly kind of looking at, right? And so that's kind of the basic functionality that I'm going to go for, is that we should only have one control be focusable at a time. So you can only focus on one control at a time. And then if you click on another control that's focusable or you tab to it, then that control becomes focused instead. So there's only going to be one control that can be focused at a time, and then each control could be marked as to whether or not it's focusable or not. And most controls will not be focusable. And the focusable will probably be configurable, I'm thinking too. So that way, as we're sort of tabbing through our controls, for example, we can jump between which control we're currently highlighting. And I think once we get text boxes working and buttons with text, some of this other stuff could probably wait, and we can come back to standard UI at some other point. And work on that at some other point, right? Because I kind of want to wrap up the standard UI stuff, at least for right now, the sort of phase 1 of it, and just get the basic controls that we need to kind of get stuff rolling so that we can actually move on to a different feature of the engine. So I think that's going to be, let's see where we wind up on that, right? So in terms of a text box and how it's going to look, I think we're going to make it look remarkably similar to what this guy looks like right here. And I know this is the checkbox, right? But you can kind of see if you look at these UI elements here, they also have this sort of embossed thing here. We might have different states of that based on whether or not it's actually focused or not, and whether or not maybe it's disabled. We don't really have disabled controls yet, I guess. So I think for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and sort of create the 9-slice background that we're going to have. I guess I can do that here. All right, so we'll put this one here. Put another one below it. So we're going to need one for sort of the normal mode, one for the focused mode. Should we bother with... I don't think I'm going to bother with a hover state on this. But let's also put one... You know what? The disabled state, I'm actually just going to make it like semi-transparent and call it a day. So we'll go with one that's normal mode and then one that is focused. And I think that should kind of give us everything we should need. Let's see. So I guess the next thing is... it's been a minute since I've used this program. I don't want the eraser. I just want the brush tool. Where the heck is the brush tool? Is this it? Selection brush? No, that's not it. Paintbrush tool. There we go. So I want that. We want full flow, full hardness, full opacity. And we'll go 1 pixel. And why is it still interpolating it like that? I don't want it to do that. Where are the... Is it not a pencil tool? Oh, pixel tool. There we go. That's actually what I want. Okay. So let's just go white for the focus, right? So we'll just kind of highlight the ring around it in white. And I think I'm actually going to leave the background of it the same. I think I'm just going to change the border. Right, and so this will be our sort of 9-slice that we're going to wind up using. I could technically do a 3-slice here, but I think a 9-slice is still more flexible. I think I'm still going to do a 9-slice. So this will be one corner. Then we'll use something like this for the center. Or for the sides, rather, and then the center and all that. Okay, so how big is this piece? Does this really not tell me how big my selection is? I guess not. Flatten these anyway. Okay. So where does this even tell me where my... This doesn't even tell me where I am in the image. It's not ideal. Well, that might be something to figure out. Okay. I think I'm going to have to like download GIMP because I'm just not as familiar with this program. I used to be, but it's been a long time since I've used it. So while I am doing that, if you guys have any questions or comments as to what I'm doing, feel free to jump into chat and ask, right? Um, let's see directly. So I'm just going to install this real fast. And then we should be good to go. Shouldn't take very long at all. Just bear with me for 1 minute here. While that's going, I suppose we could actually start thinking about our state here, right? So for all of these things, we have sort of an internal state. Let's see. So it looks something like, something like this, right? We actually don't want to use label. As an example, I think probably, do we want to do button? Yeah, I think button kind of makes sense. Let's base our state off of this. So we're going to call this text box. It's going to have a size, color. We're not really using yet, but I guess we could set text color for that. I don't know if I want to use that or not, but we do need a 9 slice. We're going to need an instance ID, frame number, and draw index for that. But then we are also going to need a SUI control. And we're going to call this one a, I guess we'll call this entry or content label. Content label. And we're actually going to have to modify, now that I'm thinking about it, we're probably going to have to modify our text control a little bit because we're going to have to clip that and stuff like that. So we'll load up GIMP. All I basically have to do is just get what the coordinates are of that texture. Then I'll have what I need to actually create the 9 slice. So that is here. Oh, did I not save it yet? What a dingus. Close all. There we go. So file, save. And then I will try again. There we go. So all I need to know basically is what these rectangles are. These guys. So our rectangle is 13 by 12. Really? Did I make that non-square? I did make it non-square. What a doofus. I don't want to duplicate it. Oh, why are you duplicating this? Okay. Non-squared, not divisible by 3. Well, the division by 3 doesn't actually matter, because any 9 slice, you should be able to have like a lot of space on the sides with having small corners. So the divisible by 3 doesn't actually matter. You know what? I don't care. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. I'm just being picky. Let's see. Tartarus of Hades. I hope I pronounced that correct. New here. What kind of engine are you making? First off, welcome to the stream. I appreciate the follow also. So what we're doing is right now we're sort of making a bit of a quote unquote general purpose 3D engine. And I'm actually working on building out the UI system for it now, or a standard UI system. It's one of a few UI systems we're actually going to have. And so this one is going to have like your standard UI controls that you might think of in an application. So your buttons, your text boxes, your scroll bars, your check boxes, things of that nature. And so let me actually, I could run this real quick because it's actually not broken at the moment. And I'll kind of show you what we have so far. So everything here is written from scratch in C using Vulkan as our rendering backend. Let me blow this up so you can see it a little bit better. And so we've written like our renderer and everything else here completely from scratch. Obviously, there's some things that we still have to do in terms of optimization. We still have a lot of optimizations we have to do. This one doesn't have one of the major optimizations that's actually in the main branch because this is a feature branch. But what we're working on right now is basically individual controls for our debugging process, right? So we have this little console right here. We can type stuff into it, commands and whatnot. And then I've just added a button that you can hover over. Obviously, you can click it, and it's dynamically resized. So, the hover works at, even though that's rotated and scaled to a different size, the hover works. And you can, click and drag off of it and drag back onto it, and all the state is correct as it should be. And so this is kind of what we're working on right now. But aside from that, we have a number of things that we've developed. So we have dynamically generated terrain here. We have some dynamic lighting. This is just using a Fong model for right now. Cool. I think I just crashed for some reason. Or did I hit? I probably hit something. Let me relaunch it. Like I said, this I'm in a feature branch right now, so it doesn't have like all the optimizations that my main branch has for a lot of this stuff. But yeah, so we have dynamically generated terrain that's created via configuration file. We can load up our shaders via configuration file, load up our models into a scene that we have, and we also have an editor gizmo control that we recently added not too long ago. So I can actually select objects in the scene and then change it to whether I want to move it in the scene on a particular axis, or I want to rotate it. You can rotate, or you can scale, right? Let me go around this way so I can grab the gizmo. right? So if I want to rotate or I want to scale on multiple axes, I can do that, or one axis or whatever, right? And so we're not using any libraries except for two, and these are only temporary. So if I look at my engine source here, we are using, under this vendor, we're using STB image and STB true type. And STB image is just to load textures, and then true type is to load fonts. We also do have audio, which I know Taman mentioned that, so let me show that as well. Well, I think I have most of it turned off right now, actually. Let me fix that. Music. Let's see. So we played the music channel on. We have multi-channel audio, right? So 7, I think. Channel 7 is what I was using for audio, I believe. So I've got that set to 0.4. So let me set that to like 0.9. And then I'll crank up the master volume also to 0.9. And I'm going to pause my background music just for a second. And we'll run this again. Yeah, the scaling is wonky, yeah. Yeah, it's used to be useful for like cartoony animations, right? So if I go here, I don't know if my audio is picking that up, actually. Did we get... I should also point out that this is the first time I've streamed on my Windows setup for quite some time, and there's been some issues. It looks like my audio all loaded correctly. So why am I not hearing it? Unless it's really faint. I'm not sure. Can you guys hear it? I'm not hearing it. No, you can't hear it. Okay. Yeah, so there... Oh, I know. I think I know what it might be. It might be... I think I literally turned the music off. Might help to turn it back on. And in fact, actually, I turned the audio emitter off too, I think. I had turned a lot of this stuff off while we were testing, just because I didn't want it to like load every single time. So let me see if that was it. There it is. So we've got the ability to play music in sort of a 2D audio setting. And then we also have support for 3D spatial audio. So there's a sound emitter tied to this light here. And if you listen closely to the audio, you can hear it going between the left and right sides of your speakers. And so, yeah, it's that's kind of a cool thing that I got working pretty recently. Like I said, I had it turned off because I didn't want to listen to it every single time I cranked up the engine. But yeah, a slider control on the SUI would be useful. Yeah, exactly, to control the volume. That's one of the primary things, right? Is I want to make a settings screen so that we can actually control that stuff, and I can stop having to change it in code, right? And a lot of this stuff is going to be configurable eventually with just files, right? So we can just load that stuff up and not have to configure it all the time in code. But yeah, that is pretty much where we're at. Can I pick the terrain? No, the terrain is not pickable at the moment. Namely because there's nothing that you could do by picking it other than just moving it around. But I could add terrain picking to it, I just haven't. Oh, we have ads. So if you can still hear, we get ads every once in a while, and I like to pause the stream whenever ads come up, so that nobody misses any content. So generally speaking, it lasts somewhere between 1 minute and 2 minutes. So I just like to pause the stream for that. So we will be back in just a moment. You can hear for now, okay. So is the terrain voxel based? No, it's not. So it's just a height map based terrain. Voxel based terrain is something I want to add eventually, because I think that'd be really, really interesting to do. But yeah, not yet. So we got about 50 seconds till ads are over. And then I'll point out some other stuff that we've been doing. It's got about 20 seconds left. All right, and we are back. So, yeah, the question was, I hit the wrong button there. The question was, is the terrain voxel based? And no, it's not. I do want to add a voxel feature to the engine at some point, but it's probably going to be a plugin. Speaking of plugins, I should probably talk about that a little bit too. Kohi's looking pretty nice. I think after you end it with standard UI, it'd be nice to do a cleaning up on the scene, get more of an editor look to it. I absolutely agree. Yeah. That's, in fact, we kind of touched on this earlier, but there is, not on this branch, but there is actually an editor application that we set up already within the project in the main branch. There's nothing in it yet, but yeah, we need to set that up so that we can stop using our testbed to build our editor and actually build the editor in the editor. So, Smudge, hello, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. So plugins. I want to talk about that real quick, just to kind of give you an idea of how the engine's architected. So the core of the engine is actually in a shared library. So it exists here under the engine folder. So on Windows, this would be a DLL. On Linux, it would be a .so. And on a Mac, it would be a dylib file. And so this is basically what contains the core logic of the engines, like the math library, the platform layer stuff for all the different platforms, things like that. And then what we're doing is we're implementing a plugin-based system where things like our renderer are actual plugins. So, for example, the Vulkan renderer itself is a self-contained plugin, right? So all of the Vulkan logic is contained within this Vulkan renderer plugin. And the application that consumes the engine tells it what plugin it wants to use. So right now we only have a Vulkan plugin, but eventually we're going to have one for Metal, one for DirectX, probably one for OpenGL, maybe. And so the application can be like, well, I want to use Vulkan or DirectX depending on what OS or environment we're on, and you can actually configure it to do that. The application itself is very, very small. So testbed is our primary application right now. And that has a single source file. And that source file basically just loads up some function pointers from a DLL or a shared library called testbed lib. And this is where our game code lives. And this is all the code for the application itself. And the idea here is that the application runs, right? So it's basically, that's where you can think of main as existing, even though it's not 100% accurate. And the testbed lib is where all the game-specific or application-specific logic lives. And this is hot reloadable. So if the application is running and we recompile testbed lib, just testbed lib, then that application logic will actually hot reload and instantly take effect while the testbed is running, right? So that's the idea behind the design of that. And then we have these plugins like the Vulkan renderer, which the application decides to use. Our audio system is also plugin based. So right now we have an OpenAL audio plugin. We could have like an Fmod or a WWise plugin as well if you wanted to implement those. And then we also have a standard UI plugin. So the standard UI that contains these standard controls that we were talking about before, that is optional to include. You don't actually have to include that to make an application if you don't want to. If you want to roll your own UI system, you can absolutely do that. Kohi knows nothing about a UI system or what it is or what it does. That is purely a plugin that you add to it to enhance the application. And the idea there is to keep it as modular as possible, so that way you only include the plugins that you actually want to use, right? And so I'm trying to design the whole engine around that concept so that when you build a editor application, it can include all kinds of stuff. But when you build a game application, it includes sort of its own libraries. And even what plugins you use could technically vary based on debug versus release builds, for example. So maybe you do include the standard library so that you get that debug dropdown available on a debug build, but maybe on a release build you don't do that, right? And so that's kind of the way we're rolling with this. Just another day in paradise. Sweet. Code KO0 based. Thank you and welcome. First time chat. Welcome to the stream. Does Kohi support custom shaders? So we have the short answer to that is yes, but with an asterisk. So we have all of our shaders right now are located in an assets folder, right? And so we have all of these shaders here. These are all known as built-in shaders, which I'm actually going to wind up getting rid of. Because eventually what we're going to do is we'll have a few shaders that might be included with the core engine, but most of these shaders are actually going to wind up being included with plugins that you use. So the plugins will be able to register their shaders, and the plugins will know what shaders need to be loaded for their stuff. And by extension, you could technically write your own plugin and have your own shaders. So yes. Let's see. How did the fight against static go, by the way? I don't want to get you too off topic, but how many statics are we down to in the engine? Are you talking about like static state? Because unfortunately, I can't just search by the static keyword, because I also use that to make functions private in compilation units. So if that's what you mean, I don't really have a way to count that actually. Sukello's Music. Hello. First time chat. Welcome to the stream. How are you? Sukellos. Okay, I think I pronounced that right. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. So just to sort of finish up my spiel here, the last thing that I want to show you guys is the website really quickly, which is kohiengine.com. I'll drop a link here in the chat. And so this is sort of the central hub for the whole project, right? So this project's been going on for about 2 years, a little over that actually now. It started as a YouTube video tutorial series. So if you check the YouTube channel, there's actually an entire playlist full of these videos, right? And it's up to, I want to say this is episode 146. Although I might have forgotten to actually change that. No, I did. Yeah, this is episode 146, right? So we've been at it for a while. But it started off as a tutorial series on YouTube. It kind of morphed into this live stream on Twitch thing where I stream most of the development on Twitch. Sometimes I do things off camera that are sort of grunt work. And the whole thing is open source. So it's all available on GitHub, right? So it is Apache 2.0 license, which means that basically you can use the code as you see fit. All I ask is that you give me credit. The whole thing is fully open source, always will be. I don't charge anything for it. I never will charge anything for it. There will never be any royalties on it if you use it. All I ask is that you give me credit. That's it. And so this is supposed to be basically a learning exercise, right? So it's not meant to compare with Unreal or any of that. Like, I'm a one-man band. I don't have the team that Unreal has, right? So let's see. You did, but I try to anticipate the awkward moment. I try my best to pronounce things. I do flub things quite a lot, but I try my best to sort of get a feel for how I think it's supposed to be pronounced. Yep, sorry, static state. Fair enough, hadn't considered that aspect. Guessing the state of most things is handled by a systems manager now. Correct, yep. Yeah, so there's a systems manager, and we can actually get the state by system type, which actually we've been using that a bit. In right here, actually. So this line right here actually demonstrates how we get system state now. So we actually have what's known as like core system state or known states. And then we have extension states, which are essentially states that are added via plugin. And then the user will be able to add their own systems and register them with this as well, and also be able to get that. So we have all of those. You're on episode 146, 2 years in. Approximately how many hours has it taken to get the engine to this point? Oh, God. I haven't thought about that, actually, because there's also been a lot of time where I've, worked offline, too. Hundreds, if not thousands, I would say, probably. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time on it, for sure. I mean, I don't know. Is there a way to get, a length of the entire playlist on YouTube? I don't actually know if that's a thing that you can do or not. I don't think it actually tells you. Tells me how many videos. Doesn't tell me how long. But, I mean, you can probably double or triple that amount because there was a lot of time spent editing, a lot of time spent doing off-camera work, things like that. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's like when someone tries to introduce you to an anime that's already 10 seasons in. Yeah, kind of, sort of. This one's totally worth starting from the beginning. I think so, just because I try to cover everything from the ground up. Literally how we set up our build system and create the project, file new everything, right? No first install fee. Yeah. That crap's never happening. You don't have to wait until season 2 for it to start getting good. Well, Season 2, I would say no, but I think it's. Let's see, what episode do we actually draw something to the screen? I think it's like 21. So episode 21 is where we clear to the screen. But that's because we're using Vulkan. It's because I take the time to explain all the steps in between, and we actually create several important subsystems before we even think about rendering. So like our memory subsystem, event handling, input, and then I think logging is in there as well. So there's a lot of things that we actually handle before we even touch the renderer. We don't even touch the renderer until episode 12. So yeah, there's that. Plot is somewhat lacking. Hardcore, yeah, for sure. I wish I was a better writer. I assumed it was significant. An engine from scratch is no joke. Yeah, definitely not. For sure. I mean, full disclosure, I probably would be a lot further along with this if I wasn't like streaming the whole thing or, YouTubing it or trying to structure it in a manner where other people had to understand it. But it's also forcing me to think about a lot of these things ahead of time as well when I write this stuff, right? And there's definitely systems in here that we like put in there and I'm like, yep, that didn't work, rip it out and start over, right? We've done that a couple of times with a few things. But I try to avoid that as much as possible. Unless I'm trying to prove a point about something. But yeah, it's been a long road. Let me see. When did I upload this? Like the first? Does it even tell me anymore? Doesn't actually even tell me. Like it just says 2 years ago that I updated or I uploaded the first video for it. So it's been a while. But yeah, so yeah, we've done the whole thing. I actually did a lines of code count the other day, and it's like 69,000 lines of code so far, which is not always an accurate representation of how much logic there is, but we do a lot to conserve lines. Like the code style is pretty dense, so we're at around 69,000 lines of code, give or take. Let's see. Do you have anything relevant to a musician who'd like to know how to integrate music without having to use middleware? That is a loaded question. So when you say integrate music without having to use middleware, integrate it with what exactly? So fun fact, 8 days, 22 hours, 6 minutes, and 24 seconds of video, I'm guessing. Total duration of the playlist. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. And it's only going to get longer. 69 420 lines, crazy. Yeah, it was close to that. Like if I can actually make it hit that number of lines, I would probably make a short about that, honestly. A YouTube short. Not sure how else to phrase it. So okay, so you're trying to integrate it with like a game or game engine or but like if someone is using an engine that doesn't necessarily have an audio engine already built in. Oh, okay. So this would be like a smaller game engine then, not something like Unreal or Unity or Godot. So are you more asking how to write an audio engine? I'm afraid to say yes, but yes. Okay. Uh, I'm not gonna lie. It is complicated. Audio in general is complicated, and the reason for that is because most platforms have at least one implementation of audio that you have to worry about. Windows has 2, Mac has 2, Linux has like 8. And so usually what I do is I will resort to using something like OpenAL, which is what I use for my audio engine, to simplify that. And so, like, if you want an example of how you might write an audio engine, you could certainly look in here, because this one isn't too complex. I was able to like cut most of it down. And I tried to comment the crap out of it. So basically the OpenAL plugin C is where you're going to want to look. The H file is basically like your sort of external facing code, if you will. And then the C file is basically where all of that stuff is. So the problem with having to write audio engines is you also have to be experienced with multi-threaded programming, because anytime you play audio, that's a blocking operation, so you have to do it on another thread. So approximately 700 hours, tripling to account for streams and offline work. Yep, I would say that's probably not too far off. That's why when you asked that question, I was like, I don't even know how to quantify that. I wish I'd kept track, honestly. Mind you, I'm not trained in coding, so I'd be starting from scratch. Okay. You definitely would not want to start off writing an audio engine then. Absolutely not. I would suggest you find a library and roll that way, because I'm pretty seasoned with writing stuff and implementing various APIs and things like that, and that stuff doesn't scare me at all these days. But this audio engine took a lot of work and a lot of debugging and a lot of hair pulling out. And so, yeah, I definitely would not start at this level if you're not trained in programming. Yeah, I would stick to using like WOIs or Fmod. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not like, if looking at this right here scares you, or stuff like this, yeah, I wouldn't look any further into this if I were you. Use something that already exists in that case. We did it here as an educational exercise, but we probably will have plugins for this engine that use some of those other libraries as well. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, like, while here on stream we like to do everything from scratch, that's mainly for educational purposes, right? Like, that's not always going to be the right answer for everything. Sometimes it really does make sense to just use a library, right? We're learning how to do everything from scratch here, so that we understand what's going on under the hood. If I wanted to just pump a game out, I would just use an existing engine, right? Or at the very least, something like Raylib or something like that, right? But that's the reason we're doing it this way in this engine. That's not necessarily the way you're always going to want to do it. My goal with this is to help motivate people that are thinking about getting into game engine development. Maybe show them a way of building it. Like, this isn't the only way to build an engine. It might not even be the right way to build an engine. It's just my way of building an engine, right? But it's kind of putting that resource out there to sort of help maybe push people in that direction, because we need more engine developers. We need I've been saying this for years. We need competition in that space, right? Unity got way too big, and look what happened, right? And I just don't trust these large corporate entities with that kind of stuff, because this is the kind of crap that they pull, right? And so, I don't recommend Unity to anybody just because of their business model anymore, right? So you're already neck deep in music, so you won't be that guy. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, that's totally acceptable, right? That Unity crap showed the industry is lacking with independent engines. And that is exactly my point, right? So there's not enough of that out there. There's just not enough independent engines out there. I'm highly familiar with pirate software. Yes, actually, if you look on my Twitch page, I'm part of the pirate crew. So yeah, Thor invited me to his team. So yeah, yes, I'm very familiar with him. Yeah, he's awesome. I love everything that he does, and I love listening to him talk because he's super knowledgeable about a lot of things. In fact, I'm going to do a shout out to Pirate Software. Yeah, he's and what he does with his ferret rescue is awesome as well. Yep, ferret software, exactly. Yeah, I always have it up too. What am I up to on? I've not had it up quite as much recently as I would like, but I'm almost to 200k points on that channel, so I leave it playing a lot. Yeah, I gotta get that ad revenue. Absolutely. Aren't a lot of the capable people already working for the big corpos already? Yes, they are. And that's kind of the way it works sometimes, right? Or sometimes, tech gets bought out, right? And that's the nature of the beast, right? But I figure if there are new people out there that are willing to do kind of what Juan has done from Godot, right? Yeah, and also they aren't because of the layoffs. Yeah, that's another thing too. But I figure if there are more people entering the industry that want to do these things, that's a good thing as well, because I feel like game engines have become like this black box that a lot of people don't really understand how they work under the hood. And I feel like the amount of people that are capable of programming that has dropped significantly since the advent of these widespread usage engines, right? So yeah, it's I'm hoping to maybe get some more people into engine development by doing this, right? I'm new to the community, as in discovered the channel 4 days ago. So if you're talking about Thor's community, yeah, he has blown up over the past 4 or 5 days, because Asmongold found one of his shorts and watched it, and his YouTube count just went through the roof. He's got to be at 150,000 subscribers by now on YouTube. Let's see. I hope to get an opportunity in the engine industry someday. So doing a project like this will absolutely help you with that. And that's part of the other reason I'm doing it, right? Is because if you start something like this, or you contribute to something like this, or you've got work that you can show that you've done on your own, that's the best way to prove that you can do it, right? You're developing mine to serve as a portfolio. Yeah, exactly. 172k. Yeah, so I figured he was probably over 100 and 150 by now. Yeah. He was at 15 less. No, he was at 12,000 subscribers, I want to say, on Friday. Was it Friday? 12,000. Yeah. Yeah, probably. I wish I could watch the 1 a.m. stream, but well, I guess I think it starts at midnight my time, I want to say. Or is it 3? I don't know. But yeah, I'm never up that early. In fact, I'm getting ready to go to bed here soon, because it's almost 11 p.m. here. But yeah, if anybody deserves that kind of growth, Thor absolutely deserves that kind of growth. His stream is awesome. The guy is super knowledgeable about a lot of different things, and he's not afraid to share that knowledge with the community, and that's awesome. I've certainly learned a lot from him, and I know a lot of other people have too. And so it's really interesting and really cool to see where he's going to wind up going. Hydrate, thank you. Appreciate that. His stream would be 4 a.m. Yeah, that sounds about right. East Coast, yep. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of 1 a.m. stream, it's almost 1 a.m. here, and I gotta go. Well, thanks for stopping by, Tammin. I appreciate it. It's always good to chat with you. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna really accomplish much else tonight. Honestly, we're kind of at the end of the stream here too. So, yeah, thanks for coming in and stretch. All right, appreciate that. Need that. Yeah. So, actually, the music that's playing in the background is from Heartbound, which is the game that Pirate Software is making. So, he gave me permission to use it on the stream. So, yeah, it's funny that that came up. Bearded Edward Snowden. You know, you're the second person that says that. That's hilarious. Heartbound is lit. Yeah, it is. It's awesome. It really is it's a great game. I haven't played the latest release, but I'm kind of trying to wait until he finishes it. Are you sure it wasn't just me last time? It might have been. It's been a while though. It might have been though. You've got stream open. You're gonna go get the demo right now. Yeah. Go buy the demo. Damn it! Don't buy the demo. Demo's free. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, it might have been you though. Yeah, pay full price for the demo. Yep. Yeah, I played the demo about halfway through and loved it so much I just immediately went and bought the combo package that he has. It's the only way to be. Yep. I would have bought the demo if I could have, honestly, just to support him. Yeah, it has exploded. Absolutely. It's really cool to see too. Because I've been watching him for almost a year now. Steam similar to Terraria. Cool. Well, Terraria is what I've... Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. I was like, Terraria, is that like a fake Ferrari or something? Feel good about it, but also sad because I was in there earlier and the chat was just flying by. Yeah, you basically have to use TTS to catch his attention these days. And even that's getting a little bit wonk. It's tough at that level because how do you really manage it, right? He does see a lot of comments though. He's actually really good about reading it. He must be able to read pretty fast. Because if I had to read that chat, I would be like,
What in the hell?
couldn't do it. All right. So, speaking of Pirate Software, there was a curse quest this morning, and he asked us to suggest materials. I must have missed that. I did a curse quest for him the other day, actually. And he was deeply amused at what I submitted. Let me see if I can find the clip. Give me a second here. Let me see clips. I think I took a clip of it. Let's see. How do I find the clips I made of another channel? That's the question. Did I clip it is the question. I might not have. I can't seem to find it. But yeah, I did a cursed quest from the other day and turned it in. He was happy with the result. No, mine was the webcomic. So I had to do a 3-panel webcomic. Let's see. I think I've got the actual webcomic here. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. So this is what I did for his curse quest the other day. I guess it was like a week or two ago. Where I had to basically draw a scene as if I was playing GTA, and a whole bunch of pedestrians spawned in front of a car that was driving really fast, and all the pedestrians were his face. Yeah, so this is what I came up with for that. Yeah. But yeah, he was deeply abused with that, for sure. But yeah, saving up my hearts to get a quest. Yep. Oh, you're not far off then if you got 3.6k. You suggested banana peels and he picked yours. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I think that's probably gonna be where I end it for tonight. Just because I mean, we got a little bit off track, but I don't mind it because I like talking with you guys, so it's all good. Speaking of pirate software things, though, I do want to do a raid. And I'm going to raid Ferret Software. And so, for those of you who don't know what Ferret Software is a ferret rescue that is run by Pirate Software, where he basically takes in ferrets that are in need of care, whether it be because of neglect situations or because of people just couldn't take care of them. Ferrets are very expensive and very difficult to take care of, and the ad revenue alone from this stream is enough to pay for the food and medical bills of all the ferrets, and I think he's up to like 17 now. It might even be more than that. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a really good cause, and just having it open helps him pay for all those bills, and it's pretty expensive. It's like there's things he has to do for them that's like $500 a year per ferret, right? So this definitely helps with that. So it's a great cause, and I'm a huge fan of it. So that's what we're going to raid tonight. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'll drop my socials here in the chat real quick. Feel free to follow me on here as well as over on YouTube. And yeah, I will see you guys around. Thank you so much for being here. Cheers.